Okay, so welcome everyone to the fourth and final webinar on the book Developments in Virtual Learning Environments and the Global Workplace. In the previous webinars, we took a look at current trends in virtual learning environments. We heard from several panelists how they incorporate them in their classrooms. And last week, we learned how engaging in virtual learning environments can develop student skills and increase their employability. Tonight, our panelists will be focusing on how virtual learning environments benefit online faculty and their professional development. First of all, I'd like to introduce the editors. First off, Susan Luck from Pfeiffer University, one of our editors, is unable to join us tonight, so she sends her best. And then there's Professor Belém Barbosa from University of Porto. Belém, you want to say hi?
Everyone. Hello, everyone.
And Izzy Crawford, Academic Strategic Lead and Senior Lecturer from Robert Gordon University in Scotland.
Hi, everybody.
and myself, Professor Stephanie Swartz from the Mainz University of Applied Sciences and in Germany. So further, I'd like to welcome our panelists. Those are Professor Alan Belcher, Professor Jennifer Robinson, Professor Kelly Olson-Stewart, and Professor Allison and Reef from the University of Arizona Global Campus, Arizona, USA. And then myself as well, I'll also be speaking about my chapter. So maybe we could start off this evening by having our panelists introduce themselves and give us a brief overview of their backgrounds and why their interest in virtual learning environments. Would you like to start? Maybe start alphabetically. Alan, would you like to begin?
Sure. Thanks, Stephanie. Hi, everyone. My name is Alan. Just recently retired from University of Arizona Global Campus. 45 years in school teaching, everything from 7th grade up through graduate programs. Spent the last 35 years in higher ed, in small private schools and then large for-profit institutions that morphed into what we have now as University of Arizona Global. It's a real pleasure to work with the other folks from this particular campus, and I will send it over to Jen Robinson.
Hey everyone, I'm Jen. I'm an associate professor at University of Arizona Global Campus and a lead faculty for information literacy. I am a career English as a second language teacher, popping up from K-12 into full-time university teaching. And I agree with Alan, this is probably the best group of faculty I've ever worked with in my life. So it's a real pleasure to dive into virtual communities with these colleagues.
Hi, I'm Kelly Olson-Stewart, and I'm an associate professor and faculty lead for the PhD in education program. And this is my 25th year. I started as a K-12 educator as well, and then have been in higher ed for the past 12 or 15 years. I think what has been fascinating for me in switching to fully online is the challenge of our associate faculty of feeling connected, and also recognizing how important the role of an associate faculty or an adjunct faculty is for our students, which is what sort of got me keyed into doing this study with my lovely colleagues. Thanks.
Hi, good morning and good evening. We have people everywhere. My name is Allison Reef. I have spent 22 years in education. I started my career in K through 12, or I should say pre-K to 12, because I worked with the real little ones. I did 13 years of that and have been in higher education for 8 years. I am a lead faculty member at UAGC in our Department of Education and Liberal Arts, and I oversee 3 early childhood programs and have the joy of working with AA students all the way up to PhD students, which is exciting. And also, I like to tell them not all that different than teaching pre-K students either. So we have a lot of fun with our students. I've only taught online in higher education, so I know it's been a scramble for some these last few years, or these last few eternities that it feels like. So we are glad that we have experience we can offer others, and that's what we're seeking to do here today.
Great, thank you. I'll just shortly about myself. I'm an American. I've been living in Germany for over 30 years and teaching for over 20 at the University of Applied Sciences in Mainz, right outside Frankfurt. And since I teach business English and business communication, it was very important for me to give my students an opportunity to get experiential learning. So that's why I started with my colleague Susan Luck in 2015, putting our classes together, engaging them in virtual team projects, which we later understood was starting to become a movement, the COIL movement. And then we joined up with Bellum and Izzy. And for several years now, been working, I guess it's been years, yeah, I would say, yeah, hard to believe. We were working together, bringing our courses together, involving them in virtual team projects, and started researching the impact of these global virtual team projects on students' intercultural competence, their virtual intelligence, and so forth. So we started seeing this also as a research opportunity. And our experiences as instructors, researchers, colleagues, led us to the idea of sharing that by editing a book in which we encouraged other colleagues like the ones we see here today in our panel to share their experiences with us. And so, yeah, we came up with this book project, and that has come to this webinar that we're very excited about. So why don't we begin by talking about the first chapter? Alan, would you like to again start with just an overview of what your chapter is about?
Sure, thanks, Stephanie. Be glad to do that. One of the things that we noticed, and the four of us that are working on this chapter all worked within the College of Education. We noticed that we had some problems, some lack of ownership, perhaps, on the part of our adjunct faculty, our part-time faculty. And we thought that there ought to be ways for us to work with them more closely, perhaps, or in some way to get them more excited about what they were doing. We theorized that there were some things perhaps that the adjunct faculty didn't know about their role. And we wanted to find out what they did know, what they felt, what types of professional development they thought would be most helpful for them. And so we had a series of these ideas. I had the pleasure of, at some point, working with each of the other authors of this chapter on a research project where we focused on one group or one topic or one piece of the puzzle. And now through the chapter, then we're trying to put all those things together. So I think we found out a lot of really useful things too that would help us know better how to work with our associate faculty through professional development. So I'd like to start off by asking Kelly. Kelly will let you know that her research was carried out at program level. But Kelly, what considerations or suggestions for others here would you have about if they're trying to hone in and improve their own professional learning communities? What kind of suggestions would you have for them to get started?
Sure, thanks, Alan. Yeah, so we did a study on our department. We had over 100 associate faculty members, and considering that they teach the majority of our students and the majority of the courses, it became clear after speaking to just a few of them during their evaluation process or in informal conversations that there were some gaps in their understanding of university initiatives, leadership, even simply who's who in the department. And so we started out with the survey. And I think the best part about finding out what your associate faculty think and feel is that you can then move forward with making plans around that. It also, there's some feeling piece to that as far as they feel honored that you're asking for their input, because that came out very clearly as an area that needed to be worked on, that they wanted to, be more involved with giving their input. But it also was a little bit hard at times to take, as far as the survey, the qualitative information was very revealing. And some of what they had to say, it was on us, things that were certainly areas that we had dropped the ball on or needed to certainly improve. And overall, honor the expertise and insights that this very important group of folks bring to the university and to the program. So my suggestions is simply first start with just asking, right? Whether that is in informal conversations, interviews, focus groups, all of those good qualitative methods really give you great insights into, is being part of a virtual professional learning community important to this group? Is it valuable to them? Where are the areas that they are wanting additional support? And see what conclusions are revealed, because then you can make a responsive plan to move forward at a department level to make sure that you're representing the needs of that specific group, in this case, 100 associate ed faculty. Most of those are K-12 focused. So that would probably be the best place to start, is just gathering that information.
Thanks, Kelly. But then, based on what you found in your study, what are some practical examples that you came up with to operationalize what you found as solutions?
Yeah, so one of the things that we recognize quickly is just simply the organization. The organization structure of the university was confusing to most associate faculty. They're not in on all of the internal conversations that happen, the moves of people in their positions, the promotions, that kind of thing. And so we started with simply sending out an organization chart with pictures that identified who's who. And oftentimes when you're an associate faculty member, you feel quite isolated with your understanding of where to go, even for simple help, or you have questions. So if you can just have the one person that is always your go-to to answer questions, that became clear was very important. Additionally, any way that you can show some TLC, really clarity around the contacts, we got that part. But then this idea of care, that they want to feel that they are being cared for, just like everyone does. But associate faculty are oftentimes, they're doing other jobs. They work for multiple universities, or they have another full-time job and don't have a lot of time to devote necessarily to being on their email all day, basically. And so some ways to show that they are cared for and that they are part of a community. And so for associate faculty who want to be part of a bigger community, providing webinars that are live and recorded, being responsive to what are the needs for professional development, what are they saying are their biggest needs, versus oftentimes as full-time faculty, we are making assumptions about the type of PD that would be most impactful for them or professional learning. Additionally, use of video, even if it's you're just sending a video saying, I'm so glad you're teaching this class. If you have questions, I'm here for you. Here's some resources that I found useful. It simply to see a face with the name when we're fully online is really important. And the more that we could use video and phone calls was certainly of benefit. The other consideration is what are some social type of events, some fun things that you can do to honor associate faculty and their work, whether they are a holiday gathering, virtual gathering that you do, a silly send in a picture of your pet day, just some ways of additionally connecting, including we made a map that we had people simply pin where in the world that they were. And we found folks that were geographically near each other and were so excited to meet for coffee and just be able to spend time together, as well as databasing all of their research interests. And so we had folks that then were able to collaborate on grant proposals or additional research. So again, it feels like you're honoring who is teaching your students. So, thanks, Alan. So now let's go to Jen. Jen, can you talk a little bit about your study and why you undertook your study? What was sort of the spurring event that made you think this was an area that you needed to explore?
Well, in previous universities where I was an online adjunct faculty, I had these amazing PLC experiences. We met every other week. It was a requirement for us at another institution where I was an adjunct faculty. And I just loved my PLC leader. Erin is the foundation for everything I do. She was just incredible. And she was a full-time science teacher in Massachusetts, and just this really talking about what you said, the keeping and caring of adjunct faculty. That is what she did. I felt very honored, noticed, and valued in her PLC group. So I went to another institution and I was going through the new faculty orientation. I thought, well, this is interesting. I was trying to share my new experiences. And what I heard in return was, oh, this university uses spies in our classes to watch us. This university, it doesn't really care what we do as long as we're spurring out the work. And I thought, oh, well, that's just the antithesis of what I had come from. So as I was working with UAGC, I wanted to find out more about what do these faculty feel? How are they feeling? How can I engage in the keeping and caring of them? So I dialed up Alan and said, what do you think about this study? I would really like to put a PLC model in place. And at that point, I was in the Master's in Education program. And I want to see if we are taking care of our faculty, what are we doing? And so we met, I think it was 6 to 9 months. We had a PLC meeting once a month, I think it was. We ended up having 2 times because they're full-time, they work. And we were able to collect some interesting information. And the biggest thing was exactly what Kelly hit on, keeping and caring. They felt that there was a connection. They wanted to feel belonging. They wanted to feel that their professional expertise was being tapped into, because it's easy to be isolated and feel overlooked when you are an adjunct faculty. So it was really nice to have these meetings to get everybody's ideas, to let everybody share what they do professionally and what their research interests were. So the biggest thing was the communication piece. Sometimes we were over communicating, sometimes we were under communicating. And so I keep Noster and thousands, 2000 change matrix up on my wall, so that if I have a faculty who feels frustrated, I can look at it and go, okay, so I'm probably not communicating resources well. So I'm trying to figure out, based on what I'm hearing from my associate faculty, what's missing in my message, because I want them to feel connected, not isolated.
Thanks, Jen. How about your overall results? How did you use those, and maybe some of the operationalizing of your findings? What does that look and sound like?
Their voices are always on my mind. Everything I do, all of the reach out I do, any changes we're making, I want their input. We now have a virtual faculty lounge in our learning management system where we put lots of resources. So anytime we do a big course revision, I make a teacher guide to get everybody started until they can create their new bank of resources based on our updates. That is also a hub of communication. So if we have our full faculty meeting, we do not get to all of our topics, we move that into a discussion in our faculty lounge. Little things like, how are you taking care of yourself over the holidays? We don't have much of a discussion going right now because I think everybody's too busy to really consider how they're taking care of themselves right now. But there is that space for us to start engaging with each other about how are we caring for ourselves. When I switched positions, moved out of the MAID program into another faculty leadership position, I found out I had 97 new associate faculty to get to know. So I took the time to set up one-on-one meetings with every single one of them. I only got to meet with about 2/3 of them. But that little bit of time has paved huge roads for us to get together. And now as we have more full-time faculty coming on, I can tell them the different nuances of all of these faculty, who's been sick, whose mom had just had a stroke, just these little bits of knowledge about our faculty really help us make those connections about whose plate's really full and maybe needs a break, or who really wants to be more involved and is in a position to do that. So I wanted them to know, coming from that study, that I'm not here to be a gotcha person. I am here to be a support. That is my role. I'm to support and make sure that they're successful so that our students can be successful. And so this has been really, really nice. We do quarterly meetings now. I'd like to make it a little more, but I think we're all just really busy. But the biggest payoff now is associate faculty will just text and say, just wanted you to know the grandbaby was born, or little things like that that really help to bridge that belonging with the university that's really important to breed faculty and student success. So Allison, I'm curious, what was it that made you want to find out if adjunct faculty felt part of a group, or how much they knew about their courses, or the structure of the group that they were in?
Absolutely. I'd love to share about that. And just to preface, we have 3 early childhood education programs and 2 child development programs. And those courses, have some similar content. So we have courses that are spread across those 5 programs. So we had a very large faculty pool, and it was a little bit confusing at times understanding where courses fit into the group. So I will get to that. I just wanted you to understand why we have so many programs with overlapping courses. But we found that when faculty feel connected to their learning community, they're less likely to be passive. And obviously the opposite of passive is active, and they start doing all those amazing things we really want them to do. They're able to learn, they're applying, they're transforming, and they're really being leaders in their classroom and in the programs. The programmatic information was important to us because we wanted to know if they understood kind of the scope and sequence of our program so that they could better scaffold the needs of the students. Whether they could refer back to a course that they knew students already took, or if they could preface something that was coming up in their future work. We also map all of our courses to program learning outcomes, and we map those to different levels. So if it's introducing, reinforcing, or mastery. So if they're teaching something like the introducing of a lesson plan for early childhood education, their instruction is going to be very different than if they were teaching that skill to mastery. So we really wanted them to understand where things fit in the program. And we found that we were doing kind of a crappy job at that. So we took that on ourselves to be a task that we were going to address moving forward. We also reference, I know we've had a pandemic, but even before, in the midst of the pandemic, we were being purchased and all kinds of things were happening and lots of movement all over. And so we understood that we were having turbulent times and lots of changes. And I know it goes with the territory in higher education, but we wanted to have our adjunct faculty feel comfort in knowing us. They needed to know who they could reach out to when there's issues and who they could connect to. And we at first were real concerned about them knowing, okay, who's the lead for this course, and who's the program chair, and who's the associate dean that oversees all of this. And then we kind of realized those things didn't matter as long as they had their person. They needed a person. And so we found that we've done a really incredible job building connections to our associate faculty, our adjunct faculty, in a way that makes it so that they have that one person. And it doesn't matter if that person oversees the course they're teaching or oversees courses they taught 3 courses ago, as long as they had that connection to somebody, it was really important. And feeling part of the group, understanding how courses fit into a program, and knowing the structure of the group are really important because faculty are our first connections to our students. And if they aren't actively involved, then the students aren't either. And that's where we lose our students, and we can't afford financially or just substantially to lose our students. They're our purpose for what we do. So we need to really cultivate a connection, which is harder to do virtually than it is in person. And we found that the greatest bang for our buck and the best way to do that is through our faculty who are teaching most of our courses.
So then how did knowing all of these things about adjunct faculty help you develop professional development for them?
We found that what we assumed and what we thought they wanted wasn't always the same. And, shame on us for assuming, but when you're working with a huge, a large group, I shouldn't say huge, we're probably about the same with you, Jen, about 100 associate faculty. We thought we were doing things that we found we weren't, or we weren't doing it in ways that they found useful. So our department is really good about doing presentations about higher education and the adult learner. And some of our faculty really liked that and wanted more. And then we had other faculty who really wanted more early childhood content. And so we have a conference, we have webinars, we have podcasts, we have all this, but we're trying to, at the time we didn't. And so we were trying to diversify, not just the content, but the way we offer that. Like you said, they work full time at another place. Typically, they might be working in schools all day, and school teachers don't have time to pop into meetings. There's so many beings sitting in front of them. So not only finding the content that made sense, but the way that we gave it to them. We also realized that they wanted to not just be talked at, they wanted to participate. And so we've been real flexible in when our faculty teach for us, they have to have professional development of some sort. So they teach a 5 or 6 week course, they have to have, it's typically 1 hour, it could be more than that. But we found that they really wanted to have a say in things. And so instead of us just providing professional development for them, we tapped into their knowledge and their experience and had them provide things for us in return. So if we were redoing a course, we'd say, hey, can you check out what we have so far? Can you look at this outline, give us some ideas, and really use their expertise so that it's more of a two-way street where we're coming together as a group and not just considering them a number and kind of filling that blank slate with information. And we found that to be very successful. And really, the more we're able to build them up, the happier they are. And when they're happy with their students, and students see that. So that became a real important focus for us. And thanks, Jen. We're gonna stop talking about all the wonderful things we've done and have Stephanie share a little bit about her chapter, because she also has her incredible things to share. So Stephanie, if you wouldn't mind, could you tell us about your chapter?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Well, the first start of the motivation was that while we were conducting research and writing papers and reviewing the literature that was out there about virtual learning environments, about collaborative online international learning, or whatever you want to call it, and also papers that were read at conferences, you sort of, or I noticed that the emphasis was primarily on the benefits for students. And so what I set out to do was to take a look at what COIL does for instructors, for professionals, and how it can develop our professional learning.
Stephanie, can you tell us why you chose this particular project? And also what was your research approach?
Well, as I mentioned before, Susan, myself, Bellum, and Izzy, we had been conducting COIL projects over the course of many semesters. And during that time, we worked together very intensively. You have to imagine, I mean, there were, just floods of emails going back and forth. Even in the semester breaks, we never stopped. We had regular, sometimes bi-monthly meetings, always on a Sunday night. I started to miss them when we started to slow down on that. It was like, what am I going to do with my Sunday night? And so we worked together so often, and the theme that came out of our conversations was, wow, what is this doing for us? You know, so every one of us would talk about something, some milestone that they had achieved at university, or even, for example, the fact that Izzy decided to completely change her PhD topic and do it on COIL. I mean, all of these things, we were continually talking about how this collaboration, these exchanges, are helping us grow as professionals. And so I started collecting those statements, either writing them down or collecting the emails. And then I sent around questions to my colleagues and asked them, could you answer a few questions? What has this done for you? Can you name some specifics, and so on and so forth. So I collected these personal experiences. And I took what they call an autoethnographic approach. In other words, more like the what you often find in research in social work and so on. So I took these personal narratives and I summed them up, and I summed up the benefits and the challenges according to three primary aspects, which I got from Starkmeyer Ring. She's done some research on what she calls global networked learning environments, which is basically just another expression for virtual learning environments or COIL. And she focused on three main aspects that are important for successful virtual learning environments, and that is the partnerships, the pedagogies, and the policies. And so I tried to separate the benefits and the challenges under those three categories. So that's basically the approach and the reason why I did it.
Thanks, Stephanie. How about some of the greatest challenges that instructors face when engaging in COIL activities?
There are lots of challenges. I'll try to focus on 6 primary ones. The first one you'll recognize because that's the one that the students complain about the most, the time zones. We did have the advantage of at least 3 of us being relatively close, but then we had another colleague, Susan, over on the East Coast. And so we always had to check to see, when is their time and when does it fit in the schedule. So like I said, it was very often Sunday night that we ended up meeting. And then, of course, the communication across digital communication channels. You have to imagine that until October 2019, I believe it was, I had not met all of these of my colleagues. And actually, I'm the only one up to now that has met everyone face to face. So I don't believe Izzy has ever had the pleasure of meeting Bellum or Susan. And Susan has only met me. So, we had to establish a relationship entirely through communication channels. And it was more than just a temporary, it was something where we were actually putting our modules together. We were putting our students together. So the time zones and the digital communication channels, that was, I would say, the first great challenge. Then all of us had enormous time constraints due to our own schedules, workload. I have a pretty high workload at the University of Applied Sciences. I have to teach 18 hours a week. And, we had also administrative duties. It was just, and none of us got any kind of course reduction or hour reduction as a result of what we were doing. So we were all doing this as a hobby, more or less. The third one is that we were working across different semester schedules, of course. So not every semester worked. Sometimes it worked for some of us, not for others. So sometimes we were not all involved in the same project. And we also had different disciplines. So the modules weren't exactly the same. Susan and I were teaching business communication. She was teaching at master level. I was at undergraduate. Bellum and Izzy were more in the area of marketing. I believe Bellum were in social media marketing. So they were a little closer. So we had to, it was an interdisciplinary exchange where we were really taking modules and trying to fit these projects in so that they would make sense for the students. Then we had a difference in approach to assessment of students. Looking at the deliverables, how are we going to assess them? What are our assessment criteria? How do we evaluate them? How strictly, how, we also had the issue that I believe one of us in the very first project did not give credit at all for the project. It was voluntary, which did not work out well. Let's just put it that way. And so we had to change things. We altered as we went along, but we always had to make sure that we were pretty much on the same page so that students would not think that they were getting an easier time of it in one and, or it was taken less seriously in another. We also had the fifth challenge was that we experienced many times a lack of institutional support. So apart from the fact that we did not get any recognition in terms of time off or a lesser workload, some of us experienced that some of us had access to the IT support, some of us got money as in our budget, others did not. In Germany, for example, interestingly enough, you would not think that of the Germans, but they were very, very relaxed about the whole thing. They did not expect me to write any reports, get anything passed, have the module go through an examination board, nothing. They were very, very open and flexible. I believe that Susan or Izzy did not have exactly the same kind of flexibility. I believe it had to be, correct me if I'm wrong, Izzy, but it had to be, approved by the head of the department.
Yes, the research element needed ethical approval from the director of research.
Right, that was another aspect that we also found different policies in terms of that. On the other hand, the Germans and the Portuguese had to deal with the restraints of the general data protection, to comply with the data protection regulations. So, we had differing policies. Some of us were less aware of them than others. That was, of course, a challenge. And then, that led basically into the sixth challenge, major challenge that we faced. And that was, of course, the varying institutional policies and the extent to which there was control over the modules from outside. How flexible could we bend the modular description and embed the project into the module.
So you mentioned benefits. What do you feel are the greatest benefits of COIL projects for instructors?
Well, again, I tried to focus on 6 main benefits. And I would say the first one was the knowledge sharing. We shared knowledge about our particular disciplines, our different approaches to those disciplines, when we were doing research, the different scales and literature on doing COIL projects. We shared knowledge about use of technology that we had. I believe Susan was the one who introduced us to the use of Slack as a collaborative platform. we exchange every time we found a new article. In fact, we still hear from Susan every once in a while. One of us, we receive emails, oh, have you read this article? Or have you read that article? So we continue to share in our knowledge acquisition. And the other aspect was that working together as Americans, as Europeans, we shared, we were exposed to each other's cultures. And you might think that, let's say, from the UK and the USA, they're not so different, but I bet you that that Jen is rolling her eyes right now, and I'm sure Izzy as well. I mean, there are big differences, and there were differences in teaching culture as well. So different approaches about methodology, or approach to the content of something, how you bring it across. We were exposed to each other's assessment criteria, how we approach assessing and evaluating the students. We shared different views on learning outcomes. What is it that we want to achieve in our students? So it was from a personal, national culture aspect, but also from a professional culture. And so that was also a great benefit. And then through the knowledge sharing, of course, we developed our own skills in use of technology, research. Bellum was very, very involved in research, more so than I was, for example, and the bug bit me, and I started, being more and more interested as well in doing those kinds of things. So I feel that I have become a better academic as well in my personal development. We improved our teamwork abilities, our time management abilities. So those things that we hope to improve in our students, we of course had to be good role models. So, the professional development in that sense was a great benefit. I would say another important aspect to this is that we were all excited about what we do. We have to be intrinsically motivated. Who's going to invest that much time and effort in something and get no pay? So we were excited about it. We were continually reworking it, making it better, adding things to it. And I believe that helped us kind of rediscover the joy of teaching. So I mean, I've been at this now for, I shouldn't probably tell you, and some of you can all relate, at least 30 years of teaching. And, after a while, it could become, the norm, just something, you just grab your books, you walk in the door and you do what you've been doing for the last years, and then you walk back into your office again. But no, this time we were doing something new, we were doing something exciting, and it got us motivated again. And I think it was it Allison who was talking about, when we are doing well as instructors, when we're feeling good, then that also has an influence on our students. If they see us being excited, we would begin the semester project with showing them a video of our Zoom meeting and all of the glitches that happened. Izzy's camera wouldn't turn on, and I don't know, suddenly, it crashed and we had to start again. So, and we showed them that. We said, hey, and this was before COVID. So of course, Zoom was not that well known. And so students saw that and they were like, oh, okay, well, if that can happen to them and they're okay, well, then we can do it too. And they got excited about it because we were excited. Okay, so I believe it improved the quality of my teaching. I can maybe say for the others as well. And it certainly increased the engagement of our students, and because we ourselves were so engaged. I would say another benefit is also that we began to attract attention from our university heads, from our institution, from our department heads about what we were doing. Oh, I heard about this thing that you're doing, you know, what's it called? How do you do that exactly? I was invited to do a presentation in front of the department about COIL. I won a prize, second place prize for innovative digital teaching. It drew attention both to myself, you know, that I do more than just simply teach the difference between present perfect and simple past. But I also do some cool stuff in my class, and my colleagues, you know, got interested in it, and it was something they could put on their website as well and say, hey, students, you know, look at what we do here. So, and it meant that, you know, money started to flow in a little bit, or IT support. When I would ask the guys in the IT department to help me out, I wouldn't have to bribe them anymore with a case of beer to come in on a Saturday to set up the teleconferencing stuff, you know, that there was this kind of, well, if she asks for this, then you do it, please. It's part of your job description. So, you know, that was definitely a benefit. And, but I left the best for last, because I would like to say that I believe that the development of our friendship, and I believe that it is really a sincere and a long-lasting friendship that we have developed over these years working together on these projects. Because you got to imagine that we all took part in each other's personal lives. I mean, you know, I've seen Izzy's daughter jump in and out of, or Bellum's as well, you know, the kids, the partners coming in and out of the room, saying hi. You know, we always started talking about what we're going through. Some of us have had professional job changes. We've lost family members. We've, you know, been through tough times, good times. My daughter got married. You know, you share those things with each other. And so without having really met each other personally, I can say that this collaboration has brought me, you know, good friends. So I would say that was, those were the benefits.
I'll just add, absolutely. I feel the same way, Stephanie. It's such a special thing. And when I eventually retire in a not too distant future, I will look back on this collaboration as one of the highlights of my entire professional life. It's just been so special and feels like such a privilege. And in terms of my own intercultural sensitivity and competency, I think it's really stretched me personally as an individual, and I'm just grateful to have had the opportunity. So thank you for bringing me in.
I couldn't imagine it without you, and not without Bellum either, or Susan. Yeah. So anyway, maybe this would be the opportunity to talk about, or, you know, if the audience has anything that they would like to add to, or have any questions. Well, while you guys are thinking up your questions, I would just like to tell you that the IGI publisher has been very generous about giving a special Nikolaus present. If any of you are aware of what Nikolaus, there's children put their shoes out on the evening to the 6th of December. And Nikolaus comes and puts sweets and, you know, and money and fruit and stuff in the shoes. So this is the IGI Nikolaus, early Nikolaus present for you guys. I'm going to share my screen. And anyone who has attended this webinar gets a 50% off on the book if you'd be interested in acquiring it. You can use the the QR code there, or you can contact the, with the discount code. Or you can also, if it's not working, reach out to one of us, and we'll be happy to forward your order to IGI. So I'd just like to point that out. Furthermore, of course, I'm also been asked to share with you that there are several books in this direction. So to recommend, if you're interested, to take a look at those. And so, yeah, that's about it.
Suitable for use in your course syllabus and as an integral resource for research advancements within your department, this publication should be included within your institution's library, along with these related publications.
Offered in print, ebook, and print plus ebook, and as a part of IGI Global's ebook collection, this publication is available through IGI Global's online bookstore, as well as many other major booksellers and platforms, including EBSCOhost, Gobi, ProQuest, and Oasis. Purchase or recommend this title to your library today.